Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is Explanation of Battle Through the Heavens episode number 161 based on novel. So let's start. The last map fragment for the purifying demonic lotus flame has been obtained. Xiao Yang's face was filled with surprise. The purifying demonic lotus flame was a heavenly flame that he had always dreamed of. It was ranked third on the heavenly flame ranking, which proved just how strong it was. With Xiao Yang's current strength, he could rise to the peak of the Dozun class if he were to swallow and refine it. How can it be so easy? Yarrow Larrow helplessly shook his head, pouring cold water over Xiao Yang. He said, "The purifying demonic lotus flame is an extremely mysterious heavenly flame. Even I have never personally seen it. It is already a great blessing that you have obtained 3 map fragments. However, it is not so easy to obtain the last map fragment." Then what is the good news that teacher has mentioned? Xiao Yang was startled before becoming slightly depressed. Even his voice had become a little weak. "We have not obtained the final map fragment, but we have come across news related to it." Yarrow Larrow fondled his beard and softly laughed. "What news?" Xiao Yang's somewhat depressed mood was braced. He hurriedly inquired. "There is a special spatial trade fair held within the Central Plains every few years. An ordinary expert would not know about this spatial trade fair. Even some of the experts whose strength has reached the Dozone class would not be aware of it without a special channel." Yarrow Larrow grinned and said, "This is because the first qualification to participate in this spatial trade fair is that one's strength must at least reach the peak of the Dozone class. In other words, most of those who can participate are the true top-tier experts of this continent. Spatial trade fair requires one to at least be at the peak of the Dozone class." Xiao Yang was involuntarily startled when he heard this information. After which, smacked his mouth. The entry qualification for this trade fair was indeed a little frightening. Peak of the Dozone class. Even top-tier factions would attempt to attract these people. However, these people barely had the qualification to participate. Moreover, this so-called spatial trade fair was something that Xiao Yang had never even heard of. It was likely because of the lack of a so-called channel. The last map fragment of the purifying demonic lotus flame will appear at this spatial trade fair? Xiao Yang asked while thinking things through. I have some friends within the people at the spatial trade fair. I have made an inquiry this time around and coincidentally heard this information. The owner of the last map fragment is also aware that this map is related to the purifying demonic lotus flame. However, he plans to use it to exchange for other things since he only possesses 1 fragment. Yarrow Larrow said. Since he is aware that this map is related to a rare object like the purifying demonic lotus flame, it is likely that the price to exchange for it will be quite great. Xiao Yang voiced his thoughts. When he obtained the map fragments in the past, the people who had obtained them from were completely unaware of their meaning. Hence, Xiao Yang had gained a great advantage. This time around someone had recognized it, making it more troublesome to obtain it. However, there is no other choice. This is the only news that we have obtained that is related to the purifying demonic lotus flame. If we do not grab a hold of it, it is likely that we will never come across the purifying demonic lotus flame. Yarrow Larrow said. "Forget it. No matter who that person is, since this thing has appeared, I must obtain it." Xiao Yang mused for a moment before gritting his teeth to speak. The purifying demonic lotus flame was something Xiao Yang had coveted ever since he had obtained the first ancient map of this heavenly flame. He had gathered the other ancient maps after much difficulty. How could he give up now that he was lacking 1 map fragment that revealed the location of the flame? Moreover, Xiao Yang would be able to fight against the Hall of Souls if he possessed the purifying demonic lotus flame. He could kill the whatever 9th Tianzuan and other top characters with 1 slap. Yarrow Larrow nodded. He immediately laughed. "However, I cannot quite remember some things because the spatial trade fair is conducted once every 10 years. Quite a number of mysterious treasures appeared, and it was even possible to find a Tian class Do skill." Tian class Do skill. Xiao Yang's expression was a little stunned when he heard this information. His heart thought even more highly of this spatial trade fair. A Tian class Do skill was usually something those super factions could possess. Moreover, most of them were treasures guarded by the sect. No one could easily take it out to exchange with others. One example was the Great Heaven Creation Palm that Xiao Yang had obtained. If he had not been lucky, he would not have obtained it. How much longer until the spatial trade fair begins? Xiao Yang frowned and asked. "There's less than a year left." Yarrow Larrow counted the time and replied. "It won't be for a long time, huh?" Xiao Yang knit his brows even more tightly. The current him could not help but wish to find the person who possessed the final ancient map. Regardless of what method he had to use, he needed to obtain that ancient map. There is no choice. If you anxiously require a heavenly flame, you can see if there has been news of any other heavenly flames or perhaps snatch it from those who have one. I wonder which faction on the continent, other than the burning flame valley, possesses the most heavenly flames. Feng Zunjia by the side joked. Xiao Yang bitterly smiled. How could it be so easy to find something like a heavenly flame? The faction with the most heavenly flames in this world is likely the Yang clan. Yarrow Larrow smiled and suddenly informed them. Yang clan? Xiao Yang was startled when he heard this answer. What faction was this? Why had he never heard of it? It is one of the 8 ancient clans and one of the hidden factions. Its strength is far beyond your imagination. The Central Plains is not as simple as it seems on the surface. The so-called 1 hall 1 tower, 2 sects 3 valleys, 4 pavilions is merely a general form of address. Some true top factions are hidden even more deeply than the Jiyu clan. Yarrow Larrow faintly explained. 8 ancient clans? Xiao Yang's heart pounded when he heard this term again. He hesitated for a moment before asking, just which clans are these 8 ancient clans? Yarrow Larrow was quiet for a moment. Only then did he reply, the Jiyu clan and Hun, Seoul, clan belong to the 8 ancient clans. Other than those 2 clans, there are still 5 other clans that still exist. They are the Yang clan, Yarrow clan, Shi clan, Lei clan, and Ling clan. Xiao Yang involuntarily inhaled a gentle breath of cold air when he heard these names that he had never heard before. This world did indeed exceed his expectations. Originally, he thought that the Hall of Souls was the strongest. It was unexpected that they were merely one of the so-called 8 ancient clans. It seems that there are only 7 clans. Xiao Yang was quiet for a moment before suddenly inquiring. Yarrow Larrow stared at Xiao Yang. A moment later, he said, there is still one ancient clan that has been abandoned, the Xiao clan, which is your current Xiao family. Xiao Yang slowly exhaled a breath of air. It was as though he wanted to exhale the many distractions within his heart. He had never imagined that the Xiao clan, located in the corner and only surviving in a second-rate city within the Jiomar Empire, possessed a legendary origin that even he could not have imagined. Although Xiao Yang was not aware of how powerful this so-called Xiao clan was, it naturally possessed a monstrous strength in order to contend against a faction like the Hun, Seoul, clan and the Jiyu clan. However, the Xiao clan, which had been prominent once, had already been eliminated by merciless time. The Xiao clan had once produced a Dou Di. Hence, the descendants of that line possessed the bloodline of a Dou Di. However, this kind of bloodline only reached the generation of your ancestor Xiao Xian before being used by him, Yarrow Larrow slowly explained. The bloodline of a Dou Di might be powerful, but it does not last forever. There is a time when it will run out. To continue preserving the bloodline, another Dou Di needs to appear and provide the bloodline with energy and life. Unfortunately, the Xiao clan has never groomed an elite Dou Di ever since that Dou Di of the Xiao clan. The strongest is merely your ancestor Xiao Xian. Similarly, his act of staking it all, putting in everything, was still not enough to rescue this declining clan. By now, the so-called Dou Di bloodline of the Xiao clan has gone to waste. I have never sensed even the slightest Dou Di bloodline in your body after so many years. Perhaps you should also be clearly aware of this. Xiao Yang quietly nodded. During these years of training, he had relied on himself during the critical life and death moment in order to break through. His Dou Di bloodline was completely useless. There is no need to feel any burden in your heart because you don't need the Dou Di bloodline with your strength. Teacher believes that you will sooner or later rebirth the abandoned Dou Di bloodline of the Xiao clan. Yarrow Larrow patted Xiao Yang's shoulder and spoke with gentle eyes. Xiao Yang slightly smiled. What could the Dou Di bloodline do? With his current achievement, he was not the least bit afraid even if he met the young experts from the ancient clans, who possessed the bloodline of a Dou Di. The only gap between the two of them was just how much effort they put in, but everyone understood that the process was unimportant. The most important thing was the result. Nobody was concerned about whether one's training journey was smooth or bumpy. All people look at was one's final achievement. Yarrow Larrow nodded in a pleased manner when he saw Xiao Yang's expression. This disciple was the best choice regardless if it was in terms of talent or character. Although he had been immature, the current him had returned to his simple and less haughty state. This continent will sooner or later remember his name forever. Why does teacher understand these 8 ancient clans so well? Wouldn't an ordinary person find it difficult to learn such information, right? Xiao Yang's eyes suddenly landed on Yarrow Larrow as he smiled and asked a pointed question. Cunning fellow, you have guessed something. Yarrow Larrow was startled before he replied with a grin. Does teacher and that so-called Yarrow clan have any relation? Xiao Yang softly inquired. Yarrow Larrow held a teacup in his hand. A faint smile appeared on his elderly face. However, this smile contained a sadness and a bitterness. I am indeed a member of the Yarrow clan. However, I belonged to the type abandoned by the clan. Abandoned? Xiao Yang was startled as he faced Yarrow Larrow in front of him. He only softly asked after a long while, with teacher's medicinal refining talent, hardly anyone across the current Dochi continent could compare with you. How could you be a person abandoned by the Yarrow clan? It is because of the Do Di bloodline. Yarrow Larrow hinted at a smile. The emotions on his face slowly withdrew as he explained, being born within an ancient clan comes with a far greater pressure than other places. There, one's status is differentiated by the richness of one's bloodline. However, both of us are similar. The Do Di bloodline flowing within my body is so thin that it is insignificant. When I was in the Yarrow clan, I was eventually expelled due to the failure of a mission I was performing. I was dissatisfied after leaving and began to place all of my effort into pill refinement. I roamed the Central Plains alone, muddled along for nearly a century, and gained some achievements. Back then, I still bore the whimsical thought that the clan would once again summon me back. However, with the flow of time, this kind of hope gradually disappeared. Yarrow Larrow softly continued, this clan might be the place that raised me, but I do not have much feelings for them. My parents had died when I was young. Subsequently, I gradually forgot about them and did not even remember them. Moreover, only some members of the Yarrow clan are aware that I was once a member of that clan. Even the Hall of Souls is unaware. Xiao Yang was quiet. It seemed that Yarrow Larrow felt rejected by the Yarrow clan. Otherwise, he would not fail to mention a sliver about it after so many years. With Teacher's current strength, no one would be able to stop you if you wished to return to the Yarrow clan, right? Xiao Yang asked. Is there any meaning to returning to that kind of place? During these years, I have only been aware that I am Yarrow Chen. However, this Yarrow is not the Yarrow of the Yarrow clan. Since they think that the old me is a useless person, the old me shall show them how well I am doing within the Central Plains and that people without the Do Di bloodline can truly become a top expert. Yarrow Larrow smiled when he spoke. He turned to Xiao Yang and said, moreover, the old me will show them that even the disciple that the old me has recruited will far exceed the people who possess a Do Di bloodline, which they so treasure. Xiao Yang nodded. His heart felt an additional dislike for this so-called Yarrow clan. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. There is hardly anyone within this Central Plains region who are aware of these 8 ancient clans. However, you currently possess the qualification to know about them. This is the reason why I am telling you this now. Yarrow Larrow was also unwilling to continue being entangled with this topic for long. He immediately waved his hands as he explained his reasoning. As for the faction with the most heavenly flames that I mentioned earlier, it should be the Yang clan, which is one of the 8 ancient clans. Yarrow Larrow mused for a moment before speaking. Based on what I know, the Yang clan should be in possession of 4 types of heavenly flames. Among them, there are 2 heavenly flames in the top 10. 4 types of heavenly flames? Xiao Yang was startled when he heard this. This was the first time that he had heard of a faction possessing such a number of heavenly flames. Other than the Yang clan, the Yarrow clan also possesses 2 types of heavenly flames. They specialize in ancient medicinal refinement. There are quite a number of experts within the clan. It is likely that you will get a chance to meet them in the future. At that time, you will be aware of their specialty. Of course, there is no need for you to be afraid of them. With your current medicinal refinement skills, the number of people among the younger generation of the Yarrow clan who could beat you can be counted with one hand. Yarrow Larrow smiled as he spoke. Countable with one hand. Xiao Yang frowned upon hearing these words. If there were no unique circumstances, he likely had the best medicinal pill refinement skill among the younger generation in the Central Plains. However, this ability was only ranked behind the top 5 within the Yarrow clan. This ranking caused him to feel a little dissatisfied. Of course, you should forget about placing your intentions on these heavenly flames because the 2 great clans have already added an inherited seal that is stronger than that of the Burning Flame Valley's 9 Dragon Lightning Flame during their countless years of inheritance. You will not be able to refine and swallow them even if you do obtain them. Yarrow Larrow grinned as he continued to speak. Xiao Yang nodded with a bitter smile. He also did not possess such thoughts. In order for the Yarrow clan and the Yang clan to survive until now, their strength was not weak. He currently did not possess much courage to place his intention on them. After all, just one Hall of Souls had already left him in a battered shape. It was not wise to add more powerful opponents now. It looks like I can only quietly wait for the so-called spatial trade fair to begin, Xiao Yang hopelessly lamented. Yarrow Larrow smiled and said, the spatial trade fair will require one to wait. However, you still have to make a trip somewhere before then. Where? Xiao Yang asked in surprise. Jiyu clan, Jiyu realm. Yarrow Larrow softly replied. Xiao Yang's hand suddenly trembled when he heard these names. An extremely beautiful face that could bring disaster to cities and countries along with an elegant lotus-like demeanor slowly surfaced in his mind. No matter what the case was, it would not disappear. Zun-er. Xiao Yang inhaled a deep breath of air. A fiery heat suddenly surged into his dark black eyes. That little girl had always caused him to worry since the beginning. In another month's time, the adult ceremony of the Jiyu clan will be held. It is held once every 2 decades. This is a great event within the GU clan because those who are qualified to participate in this adult ceremony are all the most outstanding members of the younger generation within the GU clan. There are not many factions that can receive an invitation from the GU clan. If I had not advanced to the Ban Sheng class this time around, it is likely that the Falling Star Pavilion would not have received this qualification. Yarrow Larrow took a black jade invitation from his storage ring. There were many mysterious lines outlining it. It gave one a mysterious feeling. This is the invitation. Only by possessing it will one be able to enter the GU realm. Originally, the old me should be the one heading there this time around. However, you should also be aware of the situation that the current Falling Star Pavilion faces. Although quite a number of old fellows on the continent have joined the Falling Star Pavilion recently, the thing that truly causes the Hall of Soul to be afraid of doing anything funny is this Ban Sheng strength of mine. Hence, I am unable to personally accept the invitation of the GU clan this time around. This task can only be left to you. Yarrow Larrow beamed. He handed the black jade invitation to Xiao Yang as he gave a valid reason. Xiao Yang stared intently at the black jade invitation. A moment later, he finally extended his hand and received it. The GU clan was a powerful clan that had a connection with the Xiao clan. He was finally about to make direct contact with them. A faint warmth spread when the black jade invitation entered Xiao Yang's hand. It also caused his heart to gradually recover. Those who have been invited by the GU clan are powerful factions and peak-level experts on the continent. This is also an experience for you. Of course, with your current strength and reputation, you have reached the level where you are on even terms. Yarrow Larrow smiled as he asked. So, do you have the courage to go? Teacher, you can rest assured. Xiao Yang gently tightened his hand over the jade invitation. He smiled and softly said, this disciple will definitely not cause teacher to lose face. Ha ha, I am not worried about this. Yarrow Larrow loudly laughed. After which, he patted Xiao Yang's shoulders and continued, you should leave after a couple of days. I am aware of the relationship between you and Zun. You should be more cautious when you reach the GU clan area. That girl is extremely outstanding within the GU clan. I am aware that she possesses the most complete Do Di bloodline within the GU clan in so many years. She has the greatest chance of breaking through to that legendary level. Hence, it is not easy if you wish to be with her. Xiao Yang quietly nodded. He had already vaguely sensed Zun position within the GU clan a long time ago. However, her voice and smile were like carving blades that left deep impressions within Xiao Yang's soul. He was unable to remove them. In this world, there was no strength that could remove this imprint. Even the powerful GU clan could do nothing. You should also bring Tianhua Zunja and the little fairy doctor along when you head to the GU realm. Yarrow Larrow said. After helping Tianhua Zunja refine some medicinal pills, his strength has recovered to a 6-star Dozun. I only helped the little fairy doctor refine a little of her woeful poison body. After which, I asked her to head to a place on her own. What place? Xiao Yang asked in a startled manner when he heard this. An old tomb that an ordinary person is unaware of. She will be able to obtain the method to completely control the woeful poison body there. The poison pill method that I left behind was obtained from that place. Yarrow Larrow fondled his beard, grinned, and replied. Oh! Xiao Yang was surprised. This poison pill method was not left behind by Yarrow Larrow. Just what kind of mysterious person created such a wonderful method? Why does that person have such a great understanding of the woeful poison body? Xiao Yang asked in surprise. It is likely that there will not be a second person who understands the woeful poison body more than her because she was also in possession of a woeful poison body when she was alive. However, she does not possess the good luck of the little fairy doctor. The method to control the poison body was also something that she had created when she was about to die, Yarrow Larrow said. She actually also had the woeful poison body. No wonder. The little fairy doctor will obtain the method to completely control the woeful poison body at the place where that person rests. At that time, she will be the first person in history to truly control the woeful poison body. Yarrow Larrow laughed as he said, when the little fairy doctor returns, it will be time for you to head to the ancient realm. Xiao Yang slowly nodded. He curled his lips. His hand suddenly tightened on the jade invitation. Zun I said that the next time we meet will be at the GU clan, therefore, wait for me. Xiao Yang remained within the Falling Star Pavilion while he waited for little fairy doctor to return. While he waited, Xiao Yang did not train his Do Chi. Instead, he had turned his attention to the training of his soul. The strength of one's spiritual strength was related to the tier of an alchemist. Ever since Xiao Yang's spirit had advanced to the soul state, he had not paid much attention to it due to needing to train his Do Chi. After all, as a tier 8 alchemist, those of the same generation within the Central Plains who could beat him were extremely rare, but after hearing Yarrow Larrow's explanations, he understood that this little achievement was not something to be of proud. His current alchemist level could barely be squeezed into the top 5 of the younger generation within that mysterious Yarrow clan. This fact, which had been spoken from Yarrow Laro's mouth, left a great pressure on Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang understood that he would probably come into contact with the Yarrow clan in the future due to his relationship with Yarrow Laro. No matter what the case was, he couldn't let Yarrow Laro lose face. Hence, from the way he saw it now, a tier 8 alchemist was a little inadequate. When speaking about raising an alchemist's tier, it would undoubtedly mean raising one's spiritual strength state. However, the 4 great spiritual states were not things that one could advance to just because wanted to. Mortal, soul, heavenly, di. Xiao Yang was at the soul state within the 4 great spiritual states. However, there were very few people in the Central Plains who knew how to train one's soul. Among the people who Xiao Yang was acquainted with, the number of people whose spirit had surpassed the soul state and stepped into the heavenly state would not exceed one's fingers. The 3 giant heads of the Pill Tower possessed this ability. Yarrow Laro, who had currently advanced to the Ban Sheng class, was also within this category. Even though this was the case, Xiao Yang was certain that they were still at the heavenly state. As for the extremely mysterious DI state, it was likely that this continent did not possess an alchemist at this level. My current alchemist tier should likely be at the peak of the initial tier 8 level. Xiao Yang revealed an expression of contemplation within the quiet room. Normally speaking, an alchemist who could refine a 4-colored pill lightning medicinal pill could be considered to be at the peak of the initial tier 8 level. Although the pill lightning that Xiao Yang had attracted during the pill gathering had 5 colors, the final color had not been very pure. Hence, he only placed himself at the peak of the initial tier 8 level. Attracting an additional pill lightning color for a medicinal pill within the tier 8 level involved a great gap that was as far as the heavens and earth. Hence, some of the alchemist gurus who could attract a 5-colored pill lightning were at the intermediate tier 8 level. Only if one attracted 8-colored or more pill lightning could one be called a tier 8 advanced level alchemist. However, the people of this level were existences countable with one's fingers even within the Pill Tower. My spirit should belong to the initial soul state stage. In terms of spiritual strength alone, it is comparable to other intermediate soul state experts. Xiao Yang frowned. He had not trained his spirit much during this period of time. Thus, the progress of his spiritual strength had been quite slow. It seemed that he needed to fork over more time in the future. There must not be favoritism between Do Qi and spiritual strength. After all, these 2 things were extremely important to Xiao Yang. Xiao Yang clenched his hand when he thought of this. A scroll that was formed from ancient skin appeared in his hand. The skin of the scroll was a dark yellow. At a glance, one could tell that it had existed for a long time. Xiao Yang carefully pulled open the scroll. No characters appeared on it. Xiao Yang did not feel surprise upon seeing this. Spiritual strength spread from between his brows. After which, it slowly covered the scroll. Following the presence of Xiao Yang's spiritual strength, some invisible ripples quietly formed on the skin. Then, wave after wave of information poured into Xiao Yang's mind through his soul. Great single soul skill. The information flowed into Xiao Yang's head and immediately transformed into large mysterious characters that surfaced deep within his mind. After a careful examination, it was uncovered that this was a Qi method to train one's soul. Of course, this soul training method was the prize that Xiao Yang had obtained as the champion of the pill gathering. Xiao Yang had studied it frequently after obtaining it, but he had not formally trained with it yet. He was about to travel to the Jiyu realm, and there was no telling just what he would meet there. It was definitely not wrong to be a little better prepared. Yarrow Laro had also studied this so-called great single soul skill. His evaluation of it was not bad. After all, this thing was an object from the ancient times. Spiritual training during ancient times consisted of a number of aspects compared to the future generation of Qi methods. Hence, Xiao Yang did object to practicing this Qi method. Both his spiritual training method and this great single soul skill had their own advantages. Xiao Yang shut his eyes, and his mind sank into that mysterious soul training method. It was a long time later before he slowly opened them. This great single soul skill is full of unique aspects. No wonder it was the reward of the pill-gathering champion. The few lines of the word formula that I had obtained were shabby compared to this. Xiao Yang carefully studied this great single soul skill. He gradually touched something while training his spiritual strength. He was not a new person. The control over his soul was at a grandmaster level. The great single soul skill training formula might be vague, but it was not difficult for him to understand. After some thought, the areas that he had been lost in the past suddenly opened up. It was that insightful feeling after parting the dark clouds and seeing the bright moon. While Xiao Yang was feeling pleased, the spiritual strength that lingered between his brows slowly began to rotate. A numb feeling was vaguely emitted from between his brows. After which, Xiao Yang suddenly sensed an unusual suction force being emitted. The surrounding air rippled as bits of spiritual strength seeped out and poured into his brows. Upon sensing this change, Xiao Yang slowly inhaled a deep breath on top of feeling shocked. Was this the change that occurred after possessing a complete Qi method? No wonder the alchemists from the ancient times were in their heyday. These ancient spiritual strength training methods were full of unique aspects. With this complete training method, my spiritual training in the future will finally enter the right track. If was lucky enough, his spiritual state would be able to reach the intermediate soul state. At that time, refining a medicinal pill with more than 5-colored pill lightning would not be impossible. An expression of joy filled the area between Xiao Yang's brows. The surprise that this great single soul skill gave him far exceeded what he had expected. At this moment, he regretted not having practiced it earlier. Otherwise, his spiritual strength would have stepped into the intermediate soul state level. Of course, this regret merely lasted for a flash before it disappeared. It was difficult to achieve everything. During this period of time, he might have neglected the training of spiritual strength, but his improvement in terms of Do-Chi was quite pleasing. Within a short 2 years, he had rose from the peak of the Dozone class to his current 5-star Dozan status. This speed could make up for all losses. Xiao Yang only smiled in satisfaction after having firmly remembered all of the information within the great single soul skill. He returned it to his storage ring and once again focused his mind on the training method. This continued for a couple of hours before he opened his eyes in a refreshed manner. A miraculous effect beyond my expectations. Xiao Yang praised with his mouth. He mused for a moment before clenching his hand. A bright red scroll once again appeared. Following the appearance of this scroll, a wave of rich fire energy billowed out. This bright red scroll was the scroll that Xiao Yang had snatched from the Dosheng remains back then. However, it had been left in cold storage by Xiao Yang after he had obtained it. After all, everything was not worth mentioning when compared to the great heaven creation palm, but he had just remembered it. This thing was ultimately an object belonging to a Dosheng and would not be lousy. There was nothing bad in having more techniques in one's hands. Earth Resolve Flame, DI Class High-Grade Do Skill. It is unleashed through a strange method. One's Do-Chi needs to be inserted into the land to create an extremely hot gas stream. The stream of gas will then shoot out of the ground under the opponent's feet in an unexpected manner. The attack will not reveal any sound nor presence as it delivers a fatal blow to the other party. This Do skill possesses some requirements in terms of the terrain. The closer one is to a volcanic area, the greater its strength. Xiao Yang swiftly absorbed the information within the bright red scroll into his mind. His heart was a little interested. This Earth Resolve Flame was not like other Do skills that required large-scale build-ups. Its silence and lack of aura could catch others off guard. The terrain requirement did not impede Xiao Yang. He was a human volcano with 4 types of heavenly flames. If the heavenly flame's strength was poured into the gas stream, the might of this Do skill would become even more powerful. It is indeed worthy of being a part of the collection of an elite Do Sheng. It is far from ordinary. Xiao Yang softly praised. He was aware that he had added another task, to successfully learn this so-called Earth Resolve Flame. 7 days swiftly passed. During these 7 days, Xiao Yang immersed himself in training. He practiced the Great Single Soul Skill and the Earth Resolve Flame during this time. He forgot about food and sleep, but was gaining a deeper understanding of these 2 skills. When this bitter training continued to its 8th day, a familiar aura finally appeared within his senses. That aura belonged to the little fairy doctor. She has actually become this strong, Even with Xiao Yang's temperament, he involuntarily inhaled a gentle breath of air when he sensed the degree of strength in this aura. Xiao Yang swiftly pushed open the door and walked out. He saw a beautiful figure in snow-like clothes on the edge of the quiet courtyard in front of his room. The figure was standing there elegantly. The smile on the lady's face was extremely alluring. "Have you finally returned?" Xiao Yang stopped walking. He looked at the lady, who stood in scattered sunlight, and was involuntarily startled. The little fairy doctor's snow-like hair had once again regained its original color. Long black hair poured down her back like a waterfall, randomly spreading behind her. A gentle wind blew over, causing her hair to sway. The appearance of the little fairy doctor was the same as when Xiao Yang had first met her back in Qingshan town within the Jomar Empire, except her alluring demeanor had become more potent. Even the gentle smile on her face was the same. The current her was the true little fairy doctor. Back then, she had rescued the dead and supported the injured within the Qingshan town. She had been viewed as a fairy in the heart of a countless number of mercenaries. "Why? Don't you recognize me?" The little fairy doctor took a couple of steps forward and arrived in front of Xiao Yang. She looked at his stunned expression and involuntarily laughed. "Your hair," Xiao Yang muttered. His eyes suddenly paused on the little fairy doctor's smooth forehead. There was a faint, grayish complicated imprint at that spot. At a glance, it appeared just like a seal. This is the spot where the woeful poison body exists. At this moment, all the woeful poison chi within my body has transformed into this seal. That elder is really an extraordinary person. She was able to create a method to completely condense the woeful poison body. The little fairy doctor gently rubbed the symbol on her smooth forehead as she laughed. Xiao Yang nodded while feeling at a loss. His eyes swept over the little fairy doctor before he bitterly laughed. From what I can sense, the aura that you currently possess is likely even stronger than Tianhuozunjia, right? It should be at the 7th star. The little fairy doctor replied with a sweet smile. Sealing the woeful poison body appeared to have caused the large rock in her heart to fully scatter. Her smile now was more relaxed and more tempting. A 7-star Dozun. Xiao Yang involuntarily sighed when he heard this. Putting it this way, it seemed that even the little fairy doctor had raised her strength by 3 stars or so. This caused Xiao Yang, whose strength had barely risen by 2 stars after swallowing a heavenly flame, to feel extremely speechless. Why was it that he was acquainted with people who could not be a little more ordinary? My body had gathered too much poison qi. The best evidence of this was the transformation of my hair into a white color, but after practicing the qi method that the elder had left behind, the poison qi that I had gathered became a tonic. Otherwise, I would not have been able to make this leap, the little fairy doctor gently explained. Xiao Yang helplessly nodded. He was naturally happy that the little fairy doctor and the others could experience such a lucky encounter. From another point of view, the increase in their strengths could be considered an increase in his. Nevertheless, this kind of rising speed was a little shocking. Everyone's strength had basically soared within less than 1 year, and they had all reached quite a strong level. With the lineup of Xiao Yang's group, they would be able to kill the 9th Tianzuan from the Hall of Souls should they meet him again. A person who appeared to only possess a 5-star strength but was able to unleash a frightening combat strength that was comparable to a 6-star or even 7-star expert along with 2 6-star Dozuns and an expert 7-star Dozun with the woeful poison body. As long as the Hall of Souls did not activate a Ban Sheng class ultimate expert, this lineup would be able to escape in one piece even while being chased by the Hall of Souls. Since you have arrived, it is time for us to leave. Xiao Yang gradually recovered from the joy of the great increase in the little fairy doctor's strength. He stretched his lazy waist and laughed in an indolent manner. Aye. The little fairy doctor smiled when she heard Xiao Yang's decision and did not object. Her heart felt quite happy with quietly helping him do things from behind. The second day after the little fairy doctor returned to the Falling Star Pavilion, Xiao Yang's group once again gathered together. After some preparations, the 4 of them quietly left. Other than Yarrow Larrow and a few others, they did not alert anyone as they left. The Jiyu realm was located in the eastern region of the Central Plains. Most of the factions in that region were subordinates of the Jiyu clan. However, the supreme leader of this eastern region was foreign to even some of the leaders of these factions. They only knew that this exceptional existence possessed an extremely frightening strength. If one wished to muddle along within this incomparably vast eastern region, a subordinate faction with the Jiyu clan above them possessed an effective powerful card. The Jiyu clan was a mysterious and powerful clan with talent that caused an ordinary person to feel extreme envy since the ancient times. The training path that was unusually tough in the eyes of an ordinary person appeared like a flat wide road that led to the sky in the eyes of someone from the Jiyu clan. All they needed was tiny bit of training in order to become an expert in the eyes of an ordinary person, swiftly surpassing those of the same generation who trained with great effort. Ultimately, those many dazzlingly lights would overlap above people's heads. Thus, the Jiyu clan retained a mysterious luster in the eyes of many people within the eastern region. Even in some distant areas, there were people who thought of them as gods. That fanaticism caused an ordinary person to feel disbelief because everyone knew that there was no divine being in this world. The Falling Star Pavilion was far from the eastern region. Even with the speed of Xiao Yang's group and the use of some wormholes, it would require at least half a month to reach the eastern region. Xiao Yang's group could only hurry in. By counting the time, there was merely less than a month until the adult ceremony. If they were late, it was likely that they would miss this rare occasion. An enormous black figure rushed through the azure sky. Wave after wave of wind and airflow was made visible to the naked eye. According to this speed of ours, we should reach the eastern region tomorrow. However, it is rumored that the entrance to the Jiyu realm is located in a city called Jiyu Sacred City within the eastern region. A couple of figures were seated on the enormous body of a 9 serene deep-ground python. The little fairy doctor held a map in her hand as she explained the situation to Xiao Yang in front of her. Jiyu Sacred City, Xiao Yang nodded. He had heard of this name. The reputation of this city in the eastern region surpassed the Pill Tower's Holy Pill City because it was the entrance to the Jiyu realm. The Jiyu Sacred City is a city that prohibits outsiders from entering. Quite a number of experts from the Jiyu realm guard it. If one does not possess an invitation card, even top Dozun experts would not be able to barge into it even if they wanted to. The little fairy doctor laughed. However, this is not a problem for us. There are quite a number of large cities within the eastern region that possess a wormhole that connect to the area around the Jiyu Sacred City. At that time, all we need is to use a wormhole to reach the Jiyu Sacred City. If no unforeseen circumstances occur, we will appear outside the Jiyu Sacred City in 5 days. Xiao Yang nodded. He turned to Qing Lin and asked, There have been no problems, right? There is not a single spatial fluctuation within a 50-kilometer radius. We have left very abruptly. Even if the Hall of Souls wishes to follow us, it would not be easy to do so. Qing Lin slightly nodded. 3 tiny black spots were slowly rotating within her eyes. Any energy fluctuations within a 50-kilometer radius were captured by her eyes. With Qing Lin as a scout, it would be quite difficult for the Hall of Souls to follow them and launch a surprise attack. Xiao Yang smiled when he heard this. He said, "In that case, increase our speed." That large tail of the 9 serene deep-ground python was suddenly swung when his words sounded. Its enormous body shot forward like a meteorite and disappeared into the horizon within the blink of an eye. Xiao Yang's trip was smooth throughout the way. On the morning of the next day, his group had arrived in the territory belonging to the eastern region of the Central Plains. However, they did not stop along the way. Instead, they found a large city with a wormhole that led to the area around the Jiyu sacred city. After which, they entered it without stopping. While they were shuttling through the wormhole, Xiao Yang's group was a little surprised to discover that this wormhole was extremely lively. Occasionally, a ray of light would flow by within the spatial tunnel. One could even see some experts walking in the air. The weakest person that Xiao Yang saw was a Dozong. Clearly, these people were all heading to Jiyu sacred city. However, he didn't know which factions these people belonged to. Due to the area being crowded and messy, Xiao Yang's group did not chat with those around them. Instead, they quietly traveled. Another 5 days swiftly passed. On the 5th day, Xiao Yang, who had kept his eyes shut, slowly opened them. His eyes focused on the end of the silver spatial tunnel. The spatial energy rippled. A silver light cluster vaguely appeared. Have we finally arrived? Xiao Yang gently sighed as he studied that light cluster. A fiery heat quietly climbed into his heart. That alluring figure that could bring disaster to countries and cities gradually became clearer within his mind. Zun I have arrived. That youth, who had once been shaken by this mysterious clan to the point of being speechless, was finally about to meet them. This video will end here.